Hi and welcome to Pure Yoga. We're going to be working at strengthening and stretching all around those muscles in the legs. So doing quite a lot of movement that will help strengthen and stretch those areas, but also help the lower back and around the pelvis. So let's come to a child's pose first of all. Bringing the knees nice and wide, bringing the big toes together, slowly bringing those sit bones back towards the heels. Maybe have a little rock of the hips a little bit from side to side here. Remember, take some water on whenever you're ready. So have that at the side of you if you wish to take that water on whenever feels good for you. Walk the hands forward, let the chest sink towards the floor, bring the forehead to the mat, and just take a moment in child's pose to connect with the body, to connect with the mind, to bring yourself present for the next 45 minutes-ish of class. So as you hold it in this position, notice how the shoulders feel, notice how the hips feel. Notice how the upper limbs and the lower limbs are, noticing all the joints around the wrists, the elbows, the shoulders, the hips, the knees, the ankles. Being aware of the extremities of the fingers, the extremities of the toes. Being mindful of the spine from the upper to the lower part of the back, so from the cervical spine through the thoracic, through to the lumbar, the sacrum and down to the tailbone. Be aware of that space around the rib cage, and as you're being aware of that rib cage space, start to think about the breath, that space where the lungs sit in those rib cages. The rib cages are there to protect those lungs, but they're also there to expand and contract on every inhale and exhale. So starting to take some deeper breaths in now, using that diaphragm. So if you're using the diaphragm, the belly will pop up like a balloon on the inhale. And on the exhale, that belly draws back, so we have some abdominal contractions as we push that air back up and out of either the nose or the mouth. At the moment, feel free to use either. Just connecting with that breath for the moment. Think about that 3D breath, breathing into the front, the sides and the back of the body. Not just taking it up high in the chest and making it short and shallow, sending it into the belly to make it a longer, deeper breath. Your next breath in, start to come up onto the hands and knees, slowly bringing the hips over the knees. Knees under the hips, heel of the hands under the shoulders, and just take a little rock of the hips from side to side. Just noticing how the side of those hips feel. Maybe they feel tight as you push them over to one side, then over to the other. And then bring those hips back over the knees. Walk the hands a good couple of handprints forward. And then let the chest sink down towards the floor, keeping the sit bones nice and high this time. Taking them shoulders into flexion. If this feels too much, bend the elbows a little bit to bring the elbows a little closer to the body. If you're happy to bring the forehead then back to the mat, bring it back to the mat. And just try and relax through those shoulders. Try and create some space across the collarbones. Just taking that full anterior stretch of the torso, from the hips all the way up to the shoulders. If you want to take it a little deeper, gaze forward and bring that chin towards the mat. And take a stretch into that throat space. Creating that space across the front of the body. Breathing nice and deeply still, maybe starting to connect with that Ujjayi breath, that slight restriction at the back of the throat, just using the nose. And then bring those chests back away from the floor. Walk the hands handprint back in. And then just start to lower the hips towards the heel of the hands. Toes are untucked, hovering on the mat. Pushing into the floor to push the chest away. Widen the fingers, soften the elbows. Then we're just going to take a few circular movements with those hips. So starting to take the hips over towards your left side. Bring them back towards the heels. Bring them over then to the right side. Bring them back to the heel of the hands. Another time in that direction. And back to the heels. And back to the front of the mat. And this time take it the opposite direction. Over to your right. Back towards your heels. over to your left and back to the heel of the hands. One more in that direction, right, heels, left, and heels of the hands. Turn the creases of the elbows forward and then track the elbows towards the ribs as you slowly lower the torso down, not bringing it all the way to the floor, moving the hands slightly forward, elbows under the shoulders to find Sphinx pose, pushing into the big toes, pushing the knees away from the mat, engaging those lower legs, squeezing the bum to engage through those glutes, just stretching again through that front torso area of the front anterior chain. Let the shoulder blades squeeze together and back down towards the hips. Just close the eyes here, maybe gazing forward or maybe lifting the gaze up to the ceiling to stretch a little more through that neck. Starting to get into the hip flexors a little here. The more you squeeze that bum and push the hip flexors into the mat, the more you'll feel a stretch down into that space of those hip flexors. And then bring that chest back down to the floor. Bring the hands down by the sides of the body. Just have the feet slightly apart. Then on your in-breath, push the hips into the mat. Lift up with the chest, lift up with the chin. Squeeze the shoulder blades together. Remove the hands away from the floor, palms facing in. And then push the hips in a little more. Engage the glutes and lift the feet away from the mat. Taking the bow in that prone position, laid on the belly. So now you maybe be feeling the top of those thighs slightly touching the mat, pushing into the pubic bone, resting on the belly and those lower ribs, but everything else is lifted away from the floor. Using the back chain of muscles to engage them to lift the torso, lift the legs. One more breath in here, strengthening that back chain. And then release the feet down, bring the hands down by the sides of the chest, tuck under with the toes, bring the chest back towards those thighs, keeping a good strong core engagement in the centre of the body. And then push into the hands, push into the feet, lift up with the hips to squeeze the heels back. Choice to maybe paddle the feet here, maybe move the hips a little from side to side, turning through the centre of the torso, getting a little bit of rotation in the down dog. Relaxing the head, making it heavy, let gravity take a hold. And then bringing those heels back to a still position if your hamstrings, calves and Achilles are happy to do so. Push those hands into the mat, push that chest back towards the thighs, but still try and keep a little core engagement. Try not to hollow the back as you push back. Squeeze the rib and hips together, draw the belly back, toes in front of the heels so we've got good alignment with the feet, middle finger facing forward to the front of the mat, pushing into the index finger, thumb, little finger, taking the space out of that place underneath the palms. Have a little nod and a shake of the head. And take then your vinyasa choice. So you all know where you're going now, coming forward to plank. Do your choice of vinyasa. I'm going straight to the chaturanga option, coming to a hover off the mat, or drop the knees, or release all the way to the floor. Maybe take a little back bend of baby cobra, or take it straight into your up dog. And then push into those hands and lift the hips, rolling over the toes or bring the chest back to thighs, making your way back to down dog. And find that good down dog alignment again. Hands shoulder width apart, feet hip width apart. And then take another vinyasa of your choice. Forward to plank, inhale. Release to the floor with either the knees, the whole body, or find that hover. Lift up into your back bend, whatever your back bend's happy to do. And then take it back to down dog, either chest back to thighs, or rolling over the toes, lifting the hips, squeezing of the heels back. So from this position, we're going to make our way to the front of the mat. This first time, we'll slowly walk the feet, one footprint at a time, crossing those feet one over the other, coming up onto the fingertips, bend the knees as much as you need to bring those feet back to the front of the mat. Lift all 10 toes, And then bring them down from the little toe through to the big toe. And then let the knees bend, take a hold of the elbows, let go of the head. Have a nod and shake of those heads. And then release those arms to become heavy and slowly and mindfully curl up through that spine, one vertebra at a time, bringing yourself all the way up to standing, and as you arrive in standing, roll the shoulders back. So we're going to start with a little chair sequence to strengthen those thighs. We're taking it high chair and then low chair. Hands down by the sides of the body, palms facing in. On your in-breath, bend into the knees and lift the arms up towards the ceiling, biceps by the sides of the ears, and place your weight into the heel of the foot with a feather-like touch with the toes. Sink the hips as low as you can go, making sure both feet are aligned, the toes in front of the heels, knees are slightly forward of the ankles. Try and use the muscles in the shoulders to lift those arms as high as you can, and then engage through the core by bringing those ribs and hips to tether, tucking the tailbone down and lifting that lower belly up. Hold it in this high chair just for another breath. And then reach the arms back behind you and sink the hips a little lower. Bringing that chest onto the thighs, hips stay as low as you can, and then reach the hands forward and maybe sit those hips a little lower. Either interlace the fingers or just bring the palms together, elbows are up, and your biceps again by the sides of the ears. Sinking as low as you can take them, feather-like touch still through those toes. And then release the hands down, straighten the legs, let the head go. On your in-breath, come up to a half lift. On your out-breath, plant the hands back down, step back with both feet, and take a vinyasa from this point. Either dropping the knees, straight bodies to the floor, or finding that hover of chaturanga. Take it into an up dog, lifting up through that chest. And then take yourself back to down dog, lifting of the hips, and a squeeze of those heels back. Find your good alignment in down dog. Soft elbows, wide collarbones, hips lifted, ribbon hips tethered. Weight comes into your left foot as you raise your right leg up towards the ceiling, and then bring that right knee towards the left elbow. Hold it there, squeeze everything in, those hip flexors compressing. Then roll onto the inside edge of your left foot, put your weight into your right hand, and then point that right toe out to the side. If you need to lower that right foot to the mat, feel free to do so. If you're using strength of those inner thighs on that right leg, keep that leg lifted. Then bring your left hand down, come back up onto the toes of your left foot, and then drop that left heel down to the outside of the mat. Weight into your left hand and reach your right hand up, keeping your right knee bent. Holding it in side plank with a bent right knee. Keep those hips in a nice long line, pushing into the outside edge of your left foot, externally rotating your right hip. Then bring your right foot forward to the front of the mat, helping it if you need to. Bring onto the toes of the back foot. Then drop down that left knee, untuck those left toes, push it into both the front foot and the back foot as you reach up with the arms, send them to the ceiling, clasp the fingertips except for the index finger, and then take it into as much of a back bend as you can muster, but engage that left bum cheek to protect that lower back. Draw the arms a little further back if you can to get that full extension of the spine. Maybe the gaze is up to the ceiling to challenge that balance.
The way you find your stability is pushing into the top of the back foot and the sole of the right foot. And then release those hands down either side of your right foot, and then start to walk the hands back towards that left knee, squeezing the right foot back towards the right shins, centralizing the hips, taking it into a half split with the hips over that left knee for a moment. Breathe in easy, breathe out completely. See whether you can find a little more fold on your out breath and a little more length on your in breath. Then allow that bum to come to the left heel. Keep those right toes pointed up. And then find a forward fold over that right leg again. Feeling the abdominal contraction as you fold forward. Maybe gazing down to the floor or to those toes of the right foot. Keep that right foot nice and activated. If you wish to release the stabilizers of the hands, take the hands around and wrap them around the sole of the right foot. You should feel a good hamstring stretch down that right leg. It may be that you're up higher in this pose. It may be that you come a little deeper. Just work with what your body and range of movement allows. Then bringing those hands back to stabilizers, walking the hands forward back towards that right foot. Tuck your back toes under, lift up with your back knee. Push into both feet here, and then raise those hands up to a high lunge. Again, take an interlace of the fingers up at the top, except for those index fingers. Wrap the thumbs, find that back bend, squeeze that left bum cheek. Take the arms maybe a little further back, but stay bent into that right knee. Maybe gaze up, challenge that balance. And then release the hands down. Bring them just in front of the right foot. And then step forward onto your right foot. Bring your left leg level with the hips. So we're not taking a standing half splits here. We're taking a supported warrior 3. So you can use a block underneath the hands here if you wish. You again should feel a good stretch down the back of that right leg. If you want to find a little balance, bring your right hand back by the side of the right hip, and then bring your left hand back by the side of the left hip. Holding in balance or supported if you wish. Lift that chest a little further away from the floor and engage those abdominals again. One more breath here, squeezing the shoulder blades together. And then bring that left leg down. Reach up with the hands to the ceiling. And then fold over those thighs, bringing it to a forward fold. Bringing the hands to the shins, the ankles or the floor. Let go of the head. Breath in comes to a half lift. Make sure both legs are straight. And then as you fold again, maybe you soften the knees to bring that chest back towards those thighs, taking that full forward fold. Full hamstring stretch down both legs. That right leg may feel a little easier to fold over, as we've done a lot of hamstring work on that leg in particular already. Next breath in, bend into the knees. Lower the hips as far as you can go, then bring the hands forward. Maybe interlace those fingers, low, low chair. Weight into the heels, chest on the thighs for a moment. And then bring the hands behind you and let those heels still push into the mat. Squeeze the shoulder blades together. And then come up a little higher, lift the chest away from the thighs and find your chair position. Sink the hips low, lift up through the torso, lift up through the arms, but still keep that rib and hip tethered. And then bring yourself back to standing, hands to chest. Hands down by the sides of the body, take a moment in standing. Breathe in nice and deeply in and out through the nose. Feeling both feet, the sole and the ball of the foot, the heel of the foot. Not rocking out onto either edge. Finding that central point of stability. We're going to take all those poses now on the other side. On your breath in, bend the knees, raise the arms up to the ceiling and find your first position of chair. Tuck the tailbone down, lift the lower belly up, keep that core sit engaged. Weight into those heels rather than the toes. Lift the arms a little higher. And then bring the hips lower, bring the chest to the thighs, bring the hands behind and squeeze those shoulder blades together. Taking it into a lower chair. And then reach the hands forward, interlace the fingers, maybe find yourself a little lower. This will really challenge those thighs the lower you go. Making those thighs nice and strong. And then release those hands down, straighten through the legs. Let the head go. Come up to a half lift. Fingertips or hands to the shins. Then place the hands down. Step back to a plank. And then take a vinyasa of your choice. Lower to a hover or all the way to the floor. Roll through, up, lift up the chest. Make your way back to down dog, lifting of the hips and a squeezing of the heels back. Taking it to the other side now. Weight comes into your right foot as your left leg lifts. Then bring that left knee to the right elbow and squeeze. Hold that compression of that left hip flexor. Then drop your right heel internally and bring your right hand to the ceiling and point your left toes out to the side of the mat. Falling triangle, either left foot can go to the floor or keep it lifted if you're using strength on those inner abductors. Then bring that right hand down, come back onto the toes of the right foot and then let the right outside edge come to the mat. Left hand lift, left knee lifts, still keeping it bent. Finding yourself in side plank with an external hip rotation on the left side. Really lifting through those hips. And then bringing that left foot back to the front of the mat. Either helping it through with the left hand. And then drop your right knee down and tuck those right toes. Reach up with the arms, sink the hips low. Raise those hands up, interlace the fingers, except for the index finger. Wrap the thumbs, lengthen back with the hands, squeeze the right bum cheek to protect that lower back, but maybe flare the ribs slightly to take that back into extension. One more breath here. And then release the hands down. Walk the hands back towards that right knee, bringing your left toes back towards the shin. Breathe in here, elongate that spine, and then fold from the hips. Bring that chest towards that left thigh, keeping active in that left foot. Hips staying centralised to the mat. Hips are slightly over that right knee for a moment. And then let the hips come to the heel of the right foot. Breathe in, breathe out, fold a little deeper. Maybe you take the stabilizers away and take a hold of that left foot, interlacing around, or take the ankle or the shin. Relax the shoulders, lengthen the spine on the inhale, and fold back over on your exhale. One more breath here. And then release the hands back. Walk them back towards that left foot. Tuck your back toes under, lift up your back knee. Stabilize into the feet first. As you raise the arms, squeeze that right bum cheek. Bring the hands to the ceiling, interlace fingers except for index finger. And lift back with the arms. Arch through the back, but take that bend all the way up the spine, but don't dump into that lumbar part of the back, where quite often we pivot from. Try and make it even all the way up that spine. One more breath here. And then release the hands down either side of that left foot. Slightly forward of the left foot, step onto the left leg. Right leg comes up to hip height. Try and lift the torso slightly away from the mat and keep both hips as level as you can. Right toes back to the shins, push the right heel away to straighten that right leg. If you wish to take it into a balance, left hand comes back, right hand comes back, palms facing in, engage through the centre of the body to straighten up through that torso, pointing the right head, pointing your crown of the head to the front of the mat. One more breath here. And then bringing that right leg back to meet the left, bring the hands up to the ceiling. Palms together at the top. And then fold over those thighs, taking it back to a forward fold. Let the head hang. Have a nod, have a shake of the head. Straighten the legs as much as possible, or a slight bend to bring the hands to the floor. Then your next breath in, bend into the knees, bring those hips low. Reach forward with the hands and interlace the fingers. Feather-like touch through the toes. Sink the hips lower if you can. And then bring the arms behind you. Keep those hips low. Reach back with the hands. Then coming up a little higher, bring the chest away from the thighs. Arms reach up. Tailbone tucks, lower belly lifts, finding regular chair. And then straightening up through the legs, bring the hands to the chest. Then release the hands down by the sides of the body. Roll the shoulders, close the eyes. If you wish to take water on here, just take on some water. Or just try and find some stillness in standing just for another couple of breaths. Opening your eyes. On your breath in, raise the hands to the ceiling, bend into the knees and find your high chair. Hold it in this position, make sure toes are in front of the heels, knees are hip width apart. And then bring the chest to the thigh, reach back with the hands. Sink the hips low, squeeze the shoulder blades together. And then reach forward with the hands, interlace the fingers, lower the hips a little further. And then bring the hands to the floor, straighten the legs, let the head hang. Breath in comes to a half lift. Breath out, we plant the hands, step or jump back, plank or chaturanga. Roll through, up, lift up the chest, take your back bend. And then take yourself back to down dog with a lift of the hips and a squeeze of those heels back. Weight comes into your left foot as you breathe in, right leg lifts. As you breathe out, squeeze that right knee to the left elbow, shoulders over the heel of the hands. Breathe in, raise that right leg. Breathe out, bring the knee to the nose and squeeze. Breathe in, raise the leg. Breathe out, right knee, right elbow, and squeeze. And then step your right foot to the outside of the right hand. Hands in between, hands on the inside of the right leg. And then straighten through your right leg, straighten through your left leg, and find a fold to that right inner thigh. Holding here just for a few breaths. Straightening as much as you can through both legs, encouraging the left heel to the floor. Then take a bend back into your right knee. Sink the hips as low as you go. Drop the left knee down, untuck the left toes. Reach your right hand up and over. Take a bend into your left knee, maybe take a hold of that left foot and squeeze that left foot into the bum. Getting into the thigh muscle on that left side, into that hip flexor. If you can't reach the foot, just squeeze that foot as close to the bum by using the activation of the hamstrings. Turning the chest to the right side of the room. And then release that foot to the floor and let the toes tuck under. Heel toe the right foot into the centre. Straighten both legs and walk the hands around to the left side. Toes in front of the heels or slightly turned in. Hands into the centre of the mat. Bring your left hand to centre, your right hand onto the lower spine. Then turn the shoulders to the right. Try to stack the right shoulder as much as you can without going to either side of the hip. And then reach that right hand to the ceiling, maybe gaze up to that thumb. Try and find the rotation through the waist. One more breath here. And then release that right hand down to where the left hand is. Bring your left hand onto your lower back. Turn the chest first. And reach the hand second. Turning the left palm to the left side of the room. Right hand is your anchor to find that rotation. Then release that left hand back to the floor. Allow the body to fold to the inside of those thighs. Bringing the hands maybe in between the feet. Bringing that head as close to the mat as you can. It doesn't have to reach. You can also be using that block in the centre. Your next breath in, come up to a half lift. Walk the hands back around towards your right foot. Step forward onto your right foot, raise your left foot up to hip high, come up onto fingertips, or find that balance. Right hand to the right thigh, left hand to the left thigh. Hold it in that warrior three, maybe lift that torso up a little more. And then bring yourself back to standing, hands to the ceiling. On your out breath, fold from the hips, bring the hands to the floor. Breath in, half lift. Bend the knees, sink the hips, bring the hands forward, interlace, as low as you can go with that chair. Bring the hands behind, keep the hips low. Squeeze the shoulder blades together. Then raise the hands, keeping the hips lowish and lifting the arms high. Tuck the tailbone under, draw the belly in. Straighten up through the legs, bring the hands to the chest. Same thing, opposite side. Breath in, reach the arms up, sit low in a chair. Then bring the arms back, bring the chest to the thighs, sink the hips lower. Get the hips even lower if you can and reach the arms forward as though you're almost coming down to sit on the mat. And then release the hands down, straighten the legs, let the head go. On your in-breath, come up to a half lift. On your out-breath, plant the hands, step or jump back to plank or chaturanga. Take the vinyasa, find your way to up dog. Find your way to down dog, lifting the hips, squeezing the heels back. Weight into your right foot, left leg lifts. Bring your knee towards your right elbow and squeeze. Raise the leg. Knee to the nose and squeeze. And raise that leg. Left knee to the left elbow and squeeze. And then step your left foot to the outside of the left hand. Then straighten through both legs. Full hamstring stretch down both posterior chains. Lengthen through the torso. And then bend back into that right knee. The left knee, and sink the hips. Right leg stays straight for a moment. Feel that stretch along that front right thigh. And then drop the right knee down, untuck the right toes, reach up and over with the left hand, and maybe take a hold of that right foot with the left hand, and squeeze it in towards the bum. That right thigh should be telling you it's being stretched. Turn the chest to the left. If you can't grab a hold of the foot, just squeeze it in by using the strength of that back chain muscles. Then release that right foot back to the floor and tuck the toes under. Heel toe the left foot back into the centre. Straighten through both legs. Then walk the hands around to the right. Toes in front of the heels, hands into the centre of the mat. Then walk the hands over to your right side and let yourself sink to that right thigh. Breathe into that space for a couple of breaths. Pushing into the outside edges of both feet. And then walk the hands back through centre, over to your left side. Sink towards that left thigh. Come back to centre. Allow the body to fold in between both legs, bringing the head as close as you can to the floor, hands in between the feet. Breath in comes up to a half lift. Walk your hands back around towards that front foot. Step your right foot to meet the left. Bring your right leg up to hip height, Bringing your weight onto your left leg, both hips nice and neutral. Fingertips or hands to shins, or bring yourself into the balance. Left hand comes back, right hand comes back. We lift the torso a little higher and we squeeze the shoulder blades together. And then pendulum that right leg back down, reach up with the hands. Fold forward from the hips, bringing the hands to the floor. And breath in, come to the half lift. Bend the knees as low as you can go. Interlace the fingers in front of you. Bring the seat down as much as possible. Then bring the hands behind you. Sending the weight of the arms will send you slightly out of balance and want you to fall backwards. Squeeze the shoulder blades together. And then raise the chest away from the thighs. Find your regular chair. Bum tucked under, belly lifted up. Arms lifted as high as they can. And then bring yourself to standing. Bring the hands to the chest. Taking a last vinyasa. Breathe in, raise the hands to the ceiling. Breathe out, fold from the hips. Breath in, half lift. Breath out, plant the hands, step or jump back to plank or chaturanga. Roll through, up, lift up the chest. Make your way back to down dog. Lifting the hips, squeeze of the heels back. Drop onto the forearms. Straighten out to your forearm plank. Stepping the feet back. Holding it in forearm plank, making sure those elbows are under the shoulders. Widen the fingers, squeeze the glutes, squeeze the ribs and hips together. Push into those forearms to push the chest cavity into that space between the shoulder blades. Holding it here for the count of 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Let the hips sink, keep pushing into the forearms, untuck the toes and lift up with the chest. Finding that Sphinx pose, push those hips into the mat, engage through the legs, push into the big toe mat. Release that chest down, bring the hands underneath the head, one hand stacked on top of the other. Push the hips into the mat, hollow through the belly. On your out breath, raise the arms and the hands, and on your in breath, lower. 5 more of these. Out breath, lift, engage through those abdominals. Use the muscles in the back. In breath, lower. 4 more. Out breath, lift. In breath, lower. Out breath, lift. In breath, lower. 2 more. Out breath, lift. In breath, lower. Really working that thoracic spine. 1 more. Lift on your out breath. And lower on your in breath. Keep the hands where they are, but turn onto the right cheek. Bring your left knee to a bend, left foot flat. Squeeze the left bum cheek to push those hips into the mat. So you feel that stretch on that inner left thigh. Trying to keep that left hip as low as you can. But depending on how much your range of movement of the inner groin restricts you, your hip may be slightly higher than mine, or it may be lower. No bodies, no two bodies the same. Bring that left leg back to meet the right. Turn onto the left cheek. Take a bend into your right knee, right foot, knee to the floor. Squeeze the right bum cheek to push that hip into the mat. Straighten the right leg back out. Roll onto your back. Find yourself in the most comfortable position you can find in laying. Maybe that's with butterfly legs. Maybe it's both legs dropping into the middle and the feet out to the side to get internal rotation. Wherever your legs are, maybe straight and long to the ends of the mat. Make sure the palms of the hands are turned up, the fingers are gently curled. The shoulders are relaxed down to the hips. The eyes closed, jaw softened, tongue relaxed away from the roof of the mouth. And then just take a moment here to consolidate everything you've just done through your practice, noticing the strength and the stretch of the thighs, the hip flexors, the strength and stretch of those hamstrings, the glutes, the outer hips, the stretching through the lower back from the forward folds, the contracting of the back from the back bends, the lengthening through the front chain of muscles on the torso from taking those back bends, and the contractions of the abdominals when we take ourselves into our folds, knowing we've taken full body movement, working on our mobility, strength, flexibility, becoming equal. Letting go of any breathing patterns you've held through that practice, just taking your natural automatic breath. Being aware of the parts of the body that are touching the floor. Noticing the rise and fall of the belly and the ribs as you breathe in and out. So starting now to bring some movement into the toes and the fingers, maybe into those wrists, maybe into those ankles. You may wish to take a full body stretch, reaching the hands up and over the head, stretching through the fingers, the toes, maybe arching into that lower back, maybe taking a yawn. And then bringing those hands back up and over, bringing the knees in towards you into the chest. Maybe just having a little rock of that body from side to side, massaging that spine and thanking it for practice. And then make your choice to seated. Maybe you want to roll onto your side. Maybe you want to rock up and down that spine a couple of times. Bring yourself up to seated once, back down, up to seated twice, back down. And on the third time, making your way to a seat. If you're on your side, finding your seated position now, cross-legged or on the knees, whichever suits your body. Bringing the hands onto the top of the knees, relaxing the shoulders, just taking a slight bow through the head, keeping the eyes closed. Your next breath in, raise those hands up to the ceiling, bring the palms together at the top, then bring the hands to the chest, soft gaze to the floor. Have peace in your thoughts, your words, your hearts. From my heart to yours, Namaste.